Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. It is Monday the 27th of July. I'm Peter Martin, delighted to have your company. Alan Rough, Hugh McDonald and Barry Ferguson with me here as we get ready, would you believe, for a new season of football. Yes, we're live. We'll be with you Monday to Friday, looking and discussing all the main topics that you want to discuss with us. You can like, share and follow us on our Facebook. You can subscribe on our YouTube channel. It won't cost you a penny. Right. Let's cut straight to the chase. The main news coming out from the SPFL after the arbitration. Of course, Hearts and Partick Thistle would be affected by the decision. And Murdo McLennan, first of all, has obviously released this statement on behalf of all parties concerned with regards to the SPFL in this panel. The formation of this SFA arbitration panel was an important step for Scottish football and one which enabled a detailed examination of the entire process of calling the season. Every aspect of the various arguments put forward by both Hearts and Partick Thistle was examined with full access to all relevant documents, records, emails and phone logs. I'm very pleased that the tribunal unanimously held that the challenges to the written resolution of 15th of April 2020 failed and the SPFL were entitled to pass. It is regrettable the league had to be concluded in the way it was. However, despite calls to the contrary from some parties, subsequent events, including the virtual shutdown of our entire country for months, confirm that there was no viable alternative. I sympathise hugely with all three clubs, but given this clear and unequivocal tribunal decision, it is important everyone accepts it and works together to ensure that our game can move forward. So, the upshot of it all is Hearts and Thistle lose their case at the arbitration point. They wanted relegation to be stopped. They wanted to be in the league that they ended up in. Of course, Hearts wanted to stay in the Premiership. Partick Thistle wanted to stay in the Championship. And of course, there were three other clubs affected by this. Of course, Dundee United, Cove Rangers and Wraith Rovers as well. Let's not forget, Stranraer will also be relegated. This is what the SPFL Chief Executive Neil Doncaster had to say on the matter. He said, "This is clear, comprehensive and a unanimous decision. I'm absolutely delighted that our approach has been vindicated throughout following an intense period of legal scrutiny and review. It has been a very demanding process, but I had complete confidence in the actions and decisions of the SPFL board and the SPFL executive team." Okay, there's a happy Neil Doncaster. Roughie, what's your thoughts?
Well, the first word I would use is I'm not really surprised by everything that's been going on in the last 2 months. My own opinion is the compensation thing, to move away from that, it's a joke that these clubs are now going to be hit financially through no fault of their own. But as I've said it right from the start, and particularly Partick Thistle, I've said right from the start, we'll just go on with it. That's the way it is. They've made the decision. We now have to look forward to the season. We have to get players in and get ourselves organised. But it's going to be a big disappointment for the club, and I'm sure Hearts as well, as there is a big financial hit coming down the road here, and we're the ones that are going to suffer and nobody else.
There's a double whammy coming here, Hugh. Not only will they not get the compensation that we're looking for, we're talking about figures around 10 million here. Hearts wanted 8, maybe over-optimistic in their assessment. Thistle, 2 million, maybe Stranraer would have got something as well. And over and above that, they have the notice of complaint, August 6th, when they could be hit with fines as high as £500,000. There's obviously the possibility of expulsion. I can't see that happening, Hugh. But what's your thoughts on the other whammy that could come their way with regards to the notice of complaint?
Well, Peter, it could be a triple whammy. They've lost their bid to stay in the division. That's certain. They may become liable for not only their costs, which they're liable for their own costs, but for the costs of Dundee United, Wraith Rovers, and the SPFL and Cove. And then the SFA complaint comes into play. And then the third thing comes in that they'll be liable for a fine for what seems to be a prima facie a case of disobeying the members' rules. All this was completely and utterly foreseeable. For people who don't think it was foreseeable, listen to this show over the last 3 months where this has all played out with us saying that this was the way it was bound to end. We also said that it's all right, clubs going to QCs and them giving their opinion. That's fine. If you look at precedent, if you look closely what was going to do, this was at best a hugely uphill battle for Hearts. I think in reality, and it was Hearts that was really pushing it, let's be honest, because Thistle came on board only when their legal fees were covered. It never, ever looked likely to succeed, and it hasn't succeeded, and it leaves an absolute financial wasteland for the clubs to face up to.
Yeah, I mean, the other aspect of this is I don't think, and there's been no statement released yet, I don't think Hearts will take it any further, Barry. I think this is a decision through the process which the arbitration has legal minds looking at every aspect of it, scouring over every bit of paper, the phone calls, the lot. Whether we think it was fair or not is irrelevant in this now. The decision has been made. Is it time for Hearts just to, like Partick Thistle, like Stranraer, get on with it, take the punishment, take the possible hit that's coming their way as well, and let's start the season?
Yep, I agree with what Hugh says. It was always going to be an uphill battle. We all had our opinions on the rights or wrongs of what happened to Hearts, Partick Thistle and Stranraer. So now, Peter, there's closure. That's the main thing. And I believe that Hearts, and as Roughie's just mentioned, his team, Partick Thistle, I think they'll just now shut the door on it and move on. They're going to be financially hit. There's no doubt about that. That's going to affect them getting in. He maybe sign players getting into the new season. But I'm just thankful it's all done and dusted now. There's closure and we can now move on, each and every club and everybody in the media, and just look forward to the season starting, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I've been, quite outspoken in my backing of Hearts and Partick Thistle to the same extent, and Stranraer, who are all in this mix, but more so Hearts. I know somebody on Twitter said that I'd be spewing and sick at this outcome. The one thing I would say, Hugh, I would like Hearts, like Partick Thistle and Stranraer, to accept it and move on. We move on. But I would like to highlight the fact that the injustice is still there. It's still unfair. And I think the conduct of member clubs in the SPFL has been and will not go away through any passage of time. I think their conduct has been despicable.
Well, I think my view on it, Peter, is if I can take it and slowly, Roughie says, that the clubs were down there, and what's happened to them is through no fault of their own. The only people I feel really sorry for is no fault of their own is Brora and Kelty, because they did things positively, and through no fault of their own, they're not going to get a chance to play. Thistle and Stranraer and Hearts have a blame in this. They can't just walk away and say they were bottom of the league. They were bottom of the league. That is their fault. Now the second point is nothing was going to be fair. Nothing was going to be fair. There was only two ways of doing this, and we said it from day one. There's two ways of ending the season: null and void, and the way they did it. There's no middle road. No middle road at all. That was the only way they could end the season. If you did null and void, it would have impacted on Celtic, Dundee United, Wraith Rovers and Cove. They would have thought it was unfair. So there was no fairness in this, Peter. That wasn't an option to be fair. That just wasn't on the table. The only way out of it, when that was all taken into account, was my preferred and I think brilliant solution was to go 14-10-10-10. And then you saw what Scottish clubs, as we've always expected, then you saw what Scottish clubs were all about. We're all about voting for self-preservation, and that's what kiboshed that. That's what kiboshed 14-10-10. That had nothing to do with Murdo McLennan or Neil Doncaster or anybody on in the SPFL administration. That was strictly right down to the clubs.
Yeah, another thing about it, and I pick up on Hugh's point there, and I'll get Roughie's thoughts on this, but Barry, in the cold light of day, I feel it's an injustice, and I'm not browbeating anybody into thinking the same thing. I think it was an injustice for the three clubs in the predicament they were in. In the cold light of day, bearing in mind what Hugh has said, when Hearts fans and Partick Thistle and possibly Stranraer, the fans will be able to give us a greater grasp on that when we read out some of the messages. But when Hearts look at it, in the cold light of day, I think Anne Budge will look and say she made a huge mistake because the man who put them in this predicament should have been billeted long before he was. She made mistakes. She stayed loyal to Craig Levein. He put them in the mire and they couldn't get out of it. And I think when you reflect on and take into consideration the predicament the clubs were in, they couldn't win matches. And Roughie would come on here week in, week out. You know about it, Barry. Come on and say, oh, we played great, but we get pumped. Mm-hmm. We still lost. We lost another. Oh, we played fantastic. Oh, but we lost. In the cold light of day, they were, it's what Hugh says, the managers. Anne Budge made a huge mistake in sticking with Craig Levein, and he put them right in it.
Yeah, it was at fault of their own. They were at bottom of the league. Let's no be two ways about it. They were the worst teams in the leagues, but they still had the games, Peter. That's where I think it's unfair. They still had the games to play to get the points to get out of the predicament they were in. And Partick Thistle also had played a game less than the teams above them, which I think is really unfair as well. So you can look at it both ways. I get where Hugh's coming from. It was through their own fault, being bottom in the league, not playing well enough, not getting enough results. But the way round about all this and limit the damage, and we says for day one when this happened, every pundit on this show was reconstruct 14 3-10s. It limits the damage. Yep. People stay in their leagues. Yep. People get promoted. And that was the right thing to do. And as Hugh rightly said, and you've says all the time, clubs just think about themselves. They don't think about the bigger picture, and that's Scottish football.
It's an interesting one. There'll be lots of Hearts fans, Thistle fans, and of course Stranraer fans who will be disappointed with the outcome on it. I mean, let's not beat about the bush. I mean, I'm not forgetting Daniel Stendhal in this as well, because I watched their team, Roughie, and boy, they didn't look as if they could win a game. Believe me. And I watched Hearts on a regular basis through there. Your guys, I don't think you can shirk responsibility as well. You backed the manager, couldn't win games.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think you can take that away from us. We weren't playing particularly well at the start of the season. In the middle, we were beginning to pick up points as the season went on with the games that were left. And you have to believe that you're good enough to beat some of the teams that you had played. There was lots of things you could go into, Peter. I mean, we played Dundee United 3 times up until the league was finished. A lot of teams hadn't played them. I mean, games away from home, games at home. You could sit here all day and think of things. I just think the SPFL could have done a lot better than what they did. I think some of the decision-making right for the start wasn't right. I think calling the season because all the clubs needed £45,000 or they were all going to go bust. And lo and behold, nobody's bust. There's 42 teams applied to start the Betfred Cup. So that theory is went out the window. So, there's lots of things you could do. But from our point of view, it's playing one game less than everybody else when you get a chance to be above that bottom position was taken away from you basically because of the success we had in one of the cups. It's a hard one to swallow. But that's it. It's done now.
Yep, we have to move on. Although Dundee United released a statement, obviously... like many others, including Raith Rovers, delighted with the decision. And Dundee United says, we were not prepared to stand by and watch the achievements of our championship-winning squad being undermined in that way. This is, of course, when they were hauled into having to defend themselves, because this would have had an immediate impact on them as well. And Sean Grogan rightly points out he's a Falkirk fan. What about Falkirk? There were many clubs that could have a gripe along the way, Barry, but some decided to go down a process of court. Some decided, no, we're just going to have to take our medicine.
Yeah, Peter, I can only talk about my club. We were bitterly disappointed we didn't even get the chance to play in a playoff game. I think that could have happened. Let us play the playoff game end of August, start of September. Still another 7 weeks before the league starts. So we as a club, we need to brush ourselves down and move on. We were really disappointed with the actions of some clubs in the SPFL no voting for it. But as you said, as Roughie said, every pundit on here, self-preservation, Peter. That's what it was all about. They didn't think of the bigger picture for me.
Yeah, you're absolutely 100% correct. And I don't think anybody should be rewriting history on it. The one thing that I think a lot of people, some people have been reading on social media are forgetting, Hugh, and I don't think we can forget about this. There was no option as far as, finish. There was no option to finish the league. No. I've heard a lot of bluster about, they could have done it because look at England. When you look at the chain of events and chronological order of this country and how it went into shutdown, there was no way this league could have been finished.
Well, that's patently obvious. Now we're struggling to get. There was rumours and rumblings last week. With tests, etc. That August the 1st, this Saturday, was going to be maybe too soon. I mean, the Scottish government wasn't allowing contact training between players until a couple of weeks ago. The Scottish government wasn't allowing grounds to open, even without fans, until a couple of weeks ago. The whole thing about calling the season is a complete red herring. I go back to it. Barry's got a great point. I exempt the playoff from that, because there's plenty of time to have playoffs for to get into the lower leagues. Plenty of time for that. But if you're talking about starting the SPFL, there was only two things about calling this. You just had to call the season. And I reiterate again, the only two options were calling it as it was or null and voiding it. That's it. There's no middle road. After you've called the season, you can then go down the thing and say, right, we've called it, but we don't want to punish anybody. Why don't we go to 14, 10, 10, 10? But the season, I mean, the season has had to be called. I don't understand this. People coming out and say, we should have been patient.
And the other thing about null and void is that had greater financial catastrophe for
exactly
so many other clubs. Never mind, the three that suffered the ultimate. Listen, you could bang on about it. There's lots of people talking about it. Sean made a good point about Falkirk, lots of other clubs as well. And I have to say, thank you to everyone who wants to actually put their point across. Some people don't agree. Some people say stuff Hearts, stuff Thistle, stuff Stranraer. You're perfectly entitled to your opinion on it. That's the joy of Scottish football. I mean, if there was three of us sitting in a giant hall on our own, we'd all work out a way to punch the lights out of each other. That's just what Scottish people are about. It's fantastic. Shake hands with each other and then put your face the wrong way. Bang. Hold on to that. So I think that sums it up, Hugh.
Well, very much so. People think the reason that we're all on wee separate screens is coronavirus. It's not. It's just that things got very tasty towards the end of the season. and a few lawyers' letters were put about, so I've been in solitary confinement for the last 3 months, Peter, so that's why we're all on different screens.
If only that were true. Listen, I know we like a laugh, and I know we like to offer our opinion, and thank you to the countless thousands who are joining us and joining the football family. There are some really exciting times ahead for us with the football show, and over the next couple of weeks, I do hope we're able to announce some things that I think really will whet your appetite. Monday to Friday, 4 o'clock. o'clock, we're on. We're going to be talking about football. We'll give you our opinion. We'll have a bit of banter with you, and we'll read out as many of the messages as we possibly can. Certainly the sensible ones we'll read out. But I would just like to, before we go on to lots of pre-seasons and teams and things that have happened over the weekend, I would just like to stop for a moment on a sad note. And it's David Hagen, who sadly passed away at the age of 47 from motor neuron disease. I think all of us were well aware of his illness. I certainly didn't think it was going to accelerate to the point where we were just all shocked by the loss of his life. I don't know, Barry, if you would have... Did he play in the Rangers side that you were in? I mean, what a huge loss to football, and to his family and friends. I think we all send our condolences.
Yeah, first and foremost, I got a text message on Friday night letting me know that he had passed away. I had horrendous illness. I watched a former teammate and Fernando suffer from it, and then obviously Hagen. And I was, when I was a young kid, Peter went in full time at 15. Hagen was one of the senior boys in the away dressing room. And always got on with him. He was always good. Decent player, played a few reserve games with him, and obviously went on to have a half-decent career at Hearts and Falkirk. So, yeah, sad news, Peter. It's just a horrible illness. It's not nice to watch people suffer like that. So my condolences obviously go to Hagen's family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Hugh, someone said to me, is this becoming more and more prominent in sport? I mean, it's not the prominence of it. It's the fact that more and more high-profile sportsmen. I mean, Doddy Weir does a fantastic job. More and more sports people are being highlighted with this terrible disease. But it's rippling right throughout society, and it seems to be on the increase.
Yeah, I think the awareness of it, Peter, has come up. And if you've got high-profile people like David Hagen, Doddy Weir, Fernando Rickson, I know there's English rugby league players as well involved in it. There is a suggestion that there's some, that there could be some stresses caused by high intensity training, but nobody has yet got to the bottom of that, Peter. It's just 47. I mean, as long as you get, the older you get, you look at 47 as just no age at all, frankly. And when anybody is dying at that age, the thing I always think about it is the people they're leaving behind. If they're leaving behind children, partners, it's just gut-achingly sad. There's nothing really new or original anybody can say to that except to pass on their best wishes to the family. And through Doddy Weir, of course, who's raising millions, try to find some key to at least decelerating the incidence of this illness and maybe mitigating against its dreadful symptoms, because it is a terminal illness. There's no gradations of it in that respect. It is a terminal illness. It's terrible.
Yeah, and for me, Roughie, I mean, listen, losing anyone is terrible, especially at such a young age. But I don't know, the motor neuron disease for me, when I looked at the way Fernando disintegrated as a human being, but he was still sharp, it's one of the most horrible of them all for me. I don't know about you, how you feel about it.
Yeah, I saw what Fernando tried to do. He tried to make it the illness a very aware to everybody. But I really appreciate David's family, having the dignity of keeping it within the family and dealing with it. And it was very apparent. I never met the lad. It was very apparent as soon as he obviously passed away that every club to a man that he'd played for had come out immediately and said what a great chap he was, and our club included. It just says so much about him, and I'm glad that the family sort of kept it in-house and dealt with it themselves, and I'm sure everybody would have appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to lots of people on YouTube and on Facebook who've passed on their condolences. Rest in peace, David Hagen, I think, is the message that's coming from everyone. A sad loss to football and, more importantly, to his family and friends. And that is why on this programme, I make you a promise throughout the whole of this season as well. And every season that we're on here, we will try and act with dignity, have fun, and put things in perspective. It is a game of football. It is a sport. We love love talking about it, but we're going to try and keep a line of decency throughout the whole thing. And that's what we will maintain. We may well fall short of it at times, but we'll take it on the chin and apologise if we do, but we will try and maintain that. And that's why, on countless occasions, myself and all of the guys here, including Barry's brother as well, have show racism at the red card at the very heart and core of what we try to do, and other great organisations who try and give us a decent platform to lead our lives. So with that in mind, lots to talk about. Breaking news. It's always breaking news on this. It's not a statement. Calm down, everybody. There's not been a statement released yet, still to come, but it looks as if certainly Celtic now in advanced talks for the transfer of Vasilis Barkas, and it looks as if the deal's almost done. He's expected to sign a 4-year contract at Celtic. So they didn't get Fraser Forster in the end, but they certainly weren't hanging about Hugh McDonald and trying to get somebody with the stature and maybe similar to a Fraser Forster. Certainly looks a big, tall, commanding goalkeeper.
Yeah, and he's apparently very good with his feet as well. He's actually a footballer as well in goal, and we know now that for some managers that's a requirement. Certainly, a requirement is the way Celtic want to play. The transfer window's all over the shop at the moment, Peter, because I notice people get really uptight about what happens if Morelos goes. Where's all Celtic signings, etc., etc. But it's going on to October, so I mean it seems really strange to see it, but the week we have the EPL, English Premiership, ending, we have the Scottish season starting, so it's really difficult. It's real. Everything's in. I'm sure Barry, for example, and trying to get players and trying to look at ways, he'll know that everyone's up in the air. People have just stopped playing. People are just starting playing. But certainly on this aspect, Celtic definitely needed a goalkeeper, and I presume that was their highest priority this week. To get it, and it looks as if they're going to get it done.
Yeah, we're going to talk about obviously they're friendly today. You were just a wee bit wide of the mark there, Hugh, on people being slow off the mark in their signing. I mean, I think the only player Barry hasn't signed is Anthony Stokes. So hold your breath on that, Hugh. I mean, anybody that walks past Barry's house, he signs. He's mental. I mean, it's absolutely incredible because he can feel the heat coming from his Skullbride, can you?
No, but can I just say? Hugh makes a good point. See, with the season not starting to the 17th October, I've got to appreciate a lot of the boys that are waiting to see if they can still remain in full-time football, Peter. So that's why we're a wee bit slow in the market. I've got to understand guys want to try and stay full-time, and they're waiting on clubs getting their budgets together and seeing what they can get offered. So that's why I'm slow just now, but hopefully it'll heat up in a week or two.
Oh yeah, absolutely. By the way, you know what you remind me of? I can't remember if it was Hearts. It was Hearts, right? But we went out with a camera one day, Hugh, I think I was working at STV. I know how you take these training shots of the players that are training so you can put it in your news package.
That must have been a great story, Barry, but the censors have come out.
He'll pick it up.
The censors have come in and stopped it. Anyway, you've got a couple in it anyway, Barry. You've got Callum Higginbotham in already, haven't you?
Yep, and Darren Jackson from Arbroath. But as I says, Hugh, I've got to respect that the boys want to try and remain full-time. I mean, that's what you dream of doing as a kid, innit? Playing football every single day. So that's why we've got to be a wee bit more patient in the market just now. But hopefully it heats up, as I said, in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, the point I was going to make, Barry, was I was filming the Hearts team coming over a hill, and it was like John Wayne and the Cavalry. There was about 84 of them. It was just hundreds of. I thought they're never all going to be able to play for Hearts. There was hundreds of them coming up over the hill. Roughie, your old team Hibs was involved in a pre-season
Yes.
friendly with Celtic at Celtic Park this afternoon. It ended 3-1 to Celtic. Klimala getting a double, Karamoko Dembele scoring for Celtic, and Josh Doig getting a goal for Hibs in this one. I watched the games, the friendlies at the weekend between Rangers, Motherwell, Rangers, Coventry, and Celtic's both games as well. I never really looked too much into pre-season friendlies. Do you, Roughie?
Yeah. It's a tough one, Peter, because you don't want to look too much into them. But if you're winning them, you accept it. But if you're not winning them, you go, well, there's time to come. But I would prefer to go into a season with a winning side and with confidence and a settled side, good back four or whatever, midfield, strikers. But certainly the Griffiths carry-on has made me, Lenny, think, is he still going to go with two up front? Who is that two going to be? So today's game would have maybe eased that a wee bit for him with the boys scoring a double. But it just puts a wee bit of pressure on Lee, to get his act together. But I know what you're trying to say. If you lose a game 4-0, you're going to say, well, it doesn't really matter. It's just a bounce game. I prefer to win games, get into the season rather than losing them.
Yeah, Hugh, just on that point, League of Us obviously come on the hour for Celtic, but they've been linked with Ivan Toney. Stephen Fletcher's apparently back in Glasgow. I know Tam McManus mentioned he'd bought a house back in Glasgow. Albion Ayeti from West Ham has been linked as well. So clearly Celtic are starting to ramp it up. And we're going to talk about Rangers in a minute.
Yeah, and the Yeti one from West Ham seems to be a very strong indication. I actually think that that Celtic, if they're playing two up front, are pretty well off, because Griffiths is now back into the frame. Lenny's come and said he's not quite always forgiven, but the fitness is back up to levels. I think Klimala is definitely staking his claim very strongly, both verbally, in press conference, both in his attitude in training. Apparently he came back super fit, and he scored 2 goals today, Peter, so that's never a handicap. And the third thing is they've got Elianusi, who could play off a centre forward as well. He could play off Edward as well. So I think they're actually sort of pretty strong up there at the moment. And another one in would make it even stronger.
Yeah. Now, Barry, I'm not going to blow our trumpet on this because we've been saying it forever and a day all the way through lockdown. Both you and I have been right on the mark with this one, which is quite simply, no matter what way, and I'm not going to limit it to newspapers, but no matter what way people spin it, Rangers need players. We've been bleating on about the fact they need quality players in there. The manager has said to the board, look, there's not enough here. I need players to help me try and stop 10 in a row. And quite simply, maybe Morelos to Lille or anywhere else will facilitate that.
Yeah, I've always said, Peter, listen, I'm a fan of Morelos. I think if you get Morelos up and running fit, he's a very good player. But also understand if somebody's going to come in with the types of bids that's been muted about over the last day or two, £15 million, I think Rangers would take it, if I'm being honest with you. I watched them against, I think it was Coventry, and the previous game, Motherwell. I don't think he looks at his sharpest, if I'm being honest. He's not as sharp or fit looking as the other Rangers players, and that's one thing I have been impressed by the Rangers team over the pre-season games. I'm like you, I don't look too much into results. I tend to just look at what sort of shape and what sort of form players individual are in, and certainly the Rangers players are looking decent. Morelos looks a wee bit off it. I don't know whether that's him thinking about his wanting to move. I says on this show, Peter, 2 weeks ago, I think it's clear that the manager needs to know what he's wanting to do going forward. Yeah. He either stays and you get him up to scratch and he gets back scoring goals, he's going to be a real player for Rangers. What if his head's turned with an agent telling him there's 2 or 3 clubs in for him? Then you need to make a decision. Do you get rid of him,
funnily enough,
bring in good money, and then put that back into the squad? Because Steven Gerrard was clear after the Coventry game that he wants another few players in through that door.
Yeah. It's funny you saying that, but John McNaught on Facebook says, you keep saying 10 million, you're miles off. This is me. I mean, I've been adamant for a couple of seasons. I thought he was worth 10 million. Listen, over a period of time, once you start scoring goals or you don't start scoring them, it fluctuates. As they say in the financial market, shares can go up as well as down, folks. I mean, that's the nature of it. I agree with you, Barry, on that. What I don't agree with, and this is the difference, the only difference of opinion I have with you on this, Barry, and Roughie, you might want to give us your thoughts on this. I don't think it's a case of Rangers need to ask Morelos, what do you want to do? You want to stay? I think Rangers want to get rid of him. I think Rangers are looking and saying, let's cash in here. Let's get the money. If you can get the money and give the manager 2 or 3 players that he wants, then, sell him. If somebody says 15 million and it's 50 million, great. I'm not going to argue over it because there's a pub argument for Rangers and Celtic fans who keep beating each other over the head. Who cares? If he gets 15 million, as Barry said, Steven Gerrard wants 2 or 3 players that are his style of players. I think Rangers want to sell him.
I think Steven Gerrard knows the quality the boy's got on the park. There's no doubt about that. He scores goals. But I've said it along since January. I think he's been working a ticket, or his agent's been working a ticket. He doesn't want to be there. He thinks he's better than Rangers. He thinks he should be at a top club. And I just think he's made up his mind. He's going to get out of the club one way or another. I'm not saying he's not putting in a shift or anything like that. I just think mentally he looks as if I've made up my mind, I need a move. Now, the only people that will know that, and Steven Gerrard's not a fool and his coaches aren't fools, they'll notice the body language of him coming into training, watching his body language during training, watching the games, if he's into it, if he's not into it, the tantrums he throws. I believe he threw a tantrum in Coventry when he came off. Some people noticed it, some people didn't. Things like that. He's not a fool, the man at the Rangers manager. If he gets a decent, money, and I know the papers, and I don't start shouting because you start shouting when I talk about when I start talking about when I start talking about journalists writing stories that aren't true. I don't know if it's 18 million or whatever it is, but I would take a guess that the French team have offered 10 million, thinking to get him for that. If Rangers can get 18 million, they've done particularly well. But I think that's a hassle. But the other thing in the story, and Hugh might correct me, I can't get my head round, if this story is true, that Morelos and his agent have actually met the French team and negotiated a contract. I don't think the Rangers manager would be particularly happy with that at this precise moment in time. So it's what you take out of that story is what you want. But I agree with you. I think they want him out the door. But if they want him out the door, I don't know who they're going to go for. But when they go and buy somebody, he better score 25 goals a season. Because if they doesn't score 25 goals a season, Rangers won't win that league.
Well, there we go.
Do you want to defend the journalistic trade, or will I? He's having a go at my fellow compatriots. Do you want to do it, or will I?
I'll just get the wig on, stand up and defend. I think there's pretty strong persuasive evidence, shall we say, that Morelos and his agent have been in discussions with Lille, and a satisfactory remuneration, Your Honour, has been agreed for them. And I think the outstanding thing, which is the big thing, of course, is for Rangers and Lille to come to an agreement. I think it's a huge story. I mean, we were talking earlier about the strangeness of a transfer window, and I'm sure Steven Gerrard on Saturday night has got wind at least of the Lille thing, and he's sitting there on Saturday night saying, I wanted another striker in anyway, and there's a strong possibility that A, my best striker is leaving pronto, or B, might have to stay with a petted lip that would constitute the foundations for a large housing estate in Glasgow. I mean, he's in a hugely difficult position with this, Peter. And remember, they go to Aberdeen on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know.
David Brown says, Peter, you're backtracking. I'm not backtracking. I said he was worth 10 million. I still think he's worth 10 million. If somebody in a paper writes that he's worth 18 million, who cares? As long as Rangers can get the money that they think he's worth, that's all that matters in this. I thought he was 10 million when people thought he was worth 5 Geely jars in a Quenchy cup.
But as I worry about who says they've got a massive game on Saturday, 5 days away.
Yeah.
And and Rangers need to go off to a flyer and their top player, top striker.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Did you hear that there, Hugh? Did you hear that? We need to get off to a flyer. That's
I was amazed there. I was saying, here was our own defending Kelty and their rights. Kelty have been placed in the Premiership. And I haven't noticed what kind of journalist am I?
By the way, the only thing that was missing there, Hugh, was Barry going like,
no, that's one thing I never done.
Here.
Hey, I was never a badge kisser, that's for sure.
Exactly.
In 5 days, 5 days they've got a massive game at Pittodrie.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You could be losing your top striker. You could be losing your top striker.
But Hughes made a good point. If we're under the impression that Morelos and his agent have went over there and they've offered him, 80, 90 grand, and he's coming back here to play against Aberdeen, he'll be like,
who's that? Who does he play?
The Rangers centre forward.
Morelos is his
Morelos.
Yeah, Morelos. Listen, I'll tell you one thing. Just on that, boy, I love that, Barry. The defence there, fantastic. Lots of people giving us comments. I'm going to read out more than a few of them, but I would like to say this, which is quite simply, of the players that did impress, Hadji continues to impress, Barry, and the other boy that when he first came into the side, I thought, I like the look of him because he's got a lovely touch, was Joe Aribo. Now, I don't know what happened to him. Sometimes, you lose your way or whatever. I thought he was a tidy player who looked as if he could pass and he could be really useful for Rangers. Now, he scored against Motherwell. He scored a great goal against Motherwell, and he scored an equally good goal against Coventry. So maybe this is the year for Joe Aribo. I wouldn't quite go as over the top as some fellow journalists have gone, but I think if he starts to continually show that consistency, I think he could be a good player.
Yep, impressive, Peter. That's the word I would use for Aribo over the pre-season games. He certainly stood out in the Rangers team. Individually, I mean, I think he's got all the attributes, Peter. He's strong, he can run, he's comfy on the ball, both feet. So he's certainly impressed, and it was interesting to listen to Gerrard after the game. I can't remember if it was a Motherwell or Coventry game, that he believes this is a season for him. So he's certainly impressed. He's certainly shown that he can play at a decent standard. Now it's all about maintaining that and taking it in the league campaign. And if he does that, for me, he'll be a big player for Rangers.
Yeah, Sean wants everybody to give their predictions. I think we're going to hang off for a wee while on that. And the one thing I was going to say to you, and this is, news is coming in every now and then about potentially where Morelos is going. There is one actually back in Colombia. And it's Alfredo Morelos from a Colombian tweet saying, and this is the joy of the 21st century, Hugh. This would have taken 3 weeks to be a back page lead in the Daily Mail in the 80s. It's been translated as Alfredo Morelos saying there is a lot of speculation in the press, but there is nothing yet with Lille. Yet being the operative there on that one. Now, whether that comes to any fruition or not, but I think there's no smoke without fire with Morelos. I think whether he's there or not, only time will tell. But if he is going, as Barry said, season kicking off, Rangers fans, what do you think? Who would you like to see in there? Do you have a player in mind? Do you have anybody you think would be great? I noticed that Lyndon Dykes, Roughie, has had a second bid knocked back from Barnsley by Livingston.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, that I think that one, I mean, it said 1 million, but I think that one will be a figure plus add-ons. That's the way they work down there. It's interesting they've knocked it back. They might have knocked it back because there might be something else in the pipeline. You never know. We'll just have to wait and see in that one. But he's certainly a very... Everybody's talking about him, so that's always good from the players' point of view. But I think they're looking for maybe 1.5, 2 million. That's the way it is just now. Every club is trying to screw everything out of any team that comes in. I'm surprised that Barnsley's the team is wanting them. They just dodged relegation, didn't they, because of the points thing?
Yeah. Danny McGill says, it's a decent show, this. Thanks for that, Danny. But is it really just the Celtic? Is it really just the Celtic Rangers hour? Well, Danny, if you'd been there at the start, we're talking about Hearts and Partick Thistle. And if you'd been there with us, Danny, over lockdown for the last 15 weeks, you would have realised that we've had, somewhere in the region of 65, 70 guests from right across every club, past and present players, all joining us on the show. And there'll be more and more guests to follow right across the whole of this season. So, Danny, we like your compliment. We'll take any kick in the teeth as well. We like to take criticism too, but we like to just set the record straight. And that brings me nicely to the fact is, yes, Celtic and Rangers are in the news because Celtic played a friendly. Morelos is talking. And the other thing is, Dave Cormack says that the SPFL, including the board, which includes Peter Lawwell, who's just moved on to it, it's time to get their finger out and try to get more money into the game, a major sponsor. No major sponsor for the league. It is an embarrassment, Hugh, and it's compounded by the fact that it's going to be even more difficult to find one after this COVID nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a long-standing complaint from Aberdeen as well. I think we remember an interview with Stuart Milne that you and Roughie conducted some time ago when Stuart Milne was chairman of Aberdeen and the main man up there, and he was talking very strongly about the lack of branding and the lack of promotion of the SPFL. I think it's unanswerable that it's a failing. What I would say though, I would like Dave Cormack. Yeah, he's more than entitled to his moan, but I'd like him, if he was really strong on it, to try and seek election to the SPFL board to try and sort of implement some sponsorship or attract some sponsorship. You'll know as a businessman how difficult it is at the moment. But yes, undoubtedly, it's a failing that there's not a sponsor for the divisions.
Yeah, Gary Adam has said, Peter, who would you see as a potential major sponsor for the league? I mean, that's the ideal question we should put out there. Give us an ideal company that could sponsor our league, bearing in mind what has happened over the last 3 months. I suppose Terry Towel and nappies wouldn't be too far away from my thoughts because there are leaks everywhere. But nevertheless, I'm trying to think of somebody that they should be going for. And the problem is as well, Roughie, let's not beat about the bush here. It's going to be difficult to attract a sponsor bearing in mind the conduct and the image, which I feel has been tarnished over the last 3 to 4 months, trying to get someone to come in when we're all kicking the lumps out of each other.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think the most important thing is trying to attract a sponsor, a massive company who at this moment in time, every time you pick up a paper, there's 500 getting laid off or 300 getting laid off. So any company prepared to put large sums of money are going to, obviously somebody's going to have a say about it, But I think most of it, to get back to the Aberdeen boy, I think it's most of the American owners that seem to be coming up with this new vision because obviously they see what's going on in America and all the sponsorship that goes on over them. So I think, as Hugh said, I think it'd be interesting listening to somebody like him, with his views and, where we should be attracting money, because I think the Americans seem to just to be a wee bit ahead of us in ideas of bringing money into the sport.
Yeah, you're talking about the commissioner. I will get your thoughts on that in a moment, Hugh. But just on that, Barry, the one thing that I do have a tremendous amount of sympathy, apart from the fact we started the show talking about the predicament of Hearts, Partick Thistle, Stranraer, Brora Rangers, Kelty. The one thing I do have tremendous sympathy for are the players that are not millionaires, who are now waiting with great uncertainty about where they're going to be playing football. Because with this transfer window opening and closing in October, Barry, a lot of players may well actually be lost to the game.
Yeah, Peter, we get sent through a list from the PFA, and bear in mind, every player in Scotland ain't a member, and it's the biggest list I have ever came across in all my days. The amount of players, and it ranges from 18-year-olds, Peter, right up to people coming towards the end of their career. There's a hell of a lot of players out of contract, looking for jobs, and it's a worry for these guys. Because they've got bills to pay, they've got families to feed, and I can understand, as I mentioned about 10, 15 minutes ago, we're in talks with a few, and I've got to understand that they're wanting to try and do the right thing for their families and financially, maybe staying full-time. But I think you will see quite a lot of full-time players now getting into part-time and looking out with football and trying to get a job. Like a proper job, should we say, because they're used to obviously being full-time footballers. And that's where we've picked up a couple of players, like, for instance, Callum Higginbottom, who I think could easily play in the Championship still. He's made the decision to go and work with his father-in-law and be an apprentice tiler. So that he wanted to go part-time. So there's going to be good players made available, but there's also going to be a lot of players not being able to get a club, Peter, which is a real worry. And you're going to see a lot of these players, they're going to be a big loss to the game up here.
Yeah, absolutely. Got tremendous sympathy, and I know the PFA works really hard to try and get games organised where out-of-contract players will play each other. But I'll tell you, they could probably organise 5 or 6 games, bearing in mind what Barry has just mentioned there. Anyway, apart from anything else, a couple of things I want to get your thoughts on, lads. Thanks very much to everyone for their comments. I've tried to read as many out as possible, of course, on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel on Facebook. You can like, share, and follow. We'd love you to do that. Tell your friends about it and join the football family, which I have to say the figures for the programme have been absolutely fantastic. And thanks to Gabriel, who hosted last week's show, got himself a haircut, still hasn't got a shave, but he was doing a sterling job last week on the show. And of course, it just shows you, Hugh, when you look at all the people who work on our programme, suddenly people take notice of them, and then, they start loading the bases with work elsewhere. McManus, he was trying to keep it a secret from us, but he's going to be match day. He's going to be match day at Hibernian as a pundit. Now, with all due respect, you know, I mean, he comes on PLZ Soccer, and suddenly we just elevate, what he's all about.
Well, I've noticed with the Clive Tildesley going in for the big job in England. I know Tam sent his CV down there, so there might be bigger and further moves for Tam. He's breaking stories on a Saturday night as well. He's obviously on Zoopla. He's obviously on Zoopla because he's telling Stephen Fletcher's bought a house in Glasgow and all that. He's all over the place.
Hugh, that's not breaking a story. That's saying, is there any chance I can get my mate a job with somebody? That's what he's doing there. He's highlighting it. But if Stephen Fletcher hasn't said to him, listen, Tam, I'm back up now, get it out there. But nevertheless, I
just envisioned him, Peter, just on the websites, going through Zoopla on a Saturday night, just looking for the name of a football player that's bought a house, all power at his elbow.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, you mentioned there at the start, guys, about the fact that we're just starting as the English Premier League finished at the weekend. Of course, Liverpool champions. But to sum it all up for us, our reporter Gabriel Antoniazzi looks back.
On the final day of the Premier League season, Manchester United pipped Leicester City to a Champions League place after beating the Foxes 2-0, with Frank Lampard's youthful Chelsea joining them after dispatching Wolves by the same scoreline. Leicester City dropped into the Europa League along with Tottenham, who drew 1-1 with Crystal Palace. Watford and Bournemouth were relegated from the league despite valiant efforts to stay up. The Hornets' gamble to sack Nigel Pearson with 2 games to go did not pay off, and although the Cherries overcame Everton 3-1 yesterday, Aston Villa's draw at West Ham saw them finish 17th above the other two and relegating both sides. Elsewhere, champions Liverpool reached 99 points with a victory over Newcastle, and Kevin De Bruyne made it a joint record 20 assists this campaign during Man City's 5-0 win over bottom side Norwich.
So it was exciting. I started to watch. I don't know about yourself, Barry, but I looked at it. I was delighted Villa escaped the drop, and I thought karma for Watford. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Egg in their face, Peter. I thought it was a disgraceful decision to sack Nigel Pearson. He came in and he took the job. They were bottom of the league. He'd got them, and at least they were scrapping to stay in that league. And for them to go and sack him, do you know what? I'm with you. It was a bit of karma. I thought it was a terrible decision. I felt for him. I thought he'd done a decent enough job. He earned the right to stay there until the end of the season and try to at least keep him in the league, which I think maybe he could have, because he's got a decent track record, Nigel Pearson. But on the other hand, great for Aston Villa. Great that they'll be able to try and keep a hold of like say Grealish and McGinn, because if they went down and get relegated, they were going to lose them. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah, I still think Grealish will be off anyway. The other thing I was going to say to you guys, just on that, what a great result and great for Brendan Rodgers, Hugh, because he was able to take a small club like Leicester into the Europa League.
Yeah, isn't it funny the way perceptions? We had said at the beginning of the season that Leicester is that, I don't know. It's Roughie. Somebody check on Roughie. Go widescreen on Roughie, please. I was just about to write my intro. A tribute poured in last night for a legend of Scottish football. You know? But wouldn't Brendan, if somebody had said Leicester would qualify the Europa League at the beginning of the season, I think they would have taken that as a fair season. But the collapse since Christmas, and it has been that, has been absolute collapse. Of the Manchester United caught up more than 13 points is really a kick in the whatsoever's for Brendan and for Leicester. On the Aston Villa thing, Peter, as well, I think it would be remiss of us not to say that the leading role that was played in them keeping up by an ex-PLZ pundit. We've talked about Tam McManus, the only PLZ pundit that has sang a garden party song on the show. That is Thomas, now known as Tommy Jordan. So I saw him in the celebration pictures last night, giving a big hug, obviously keeping his Premier League salary with the boys staying up. So that's another reason to be joyful, Peter.
Yep, I did actually have a chat with Thomas over the last month or so. I was absolutely delighted for him. He was a pundit on this programme, and we absolutely miss him. He was one of those guys that we wanted to keep Roughie, but the financial demands of Thomas just got out of hand, and we said to him, well, I won't take a flying... Well, we said something along that line, but nevertheless, I don't know if you've noticed, but Tommy is the PR guy now for Aston Villa. The photographs yesterday, Roughie, he's on a hard paper run. He's gone grey. He's gone completely grey.
And we have to find out where he got that polo neck he had on. You know, that must be the top of the range down that neck of the woods, because I haven't seen one of them for a while.
Oh, they're in Birmingham, by the way, where ELO are still number one after 15 years. So it's a real worry in that area. The other thing I was going to say to you guys, we got Gabriel to pick the English Premier League team of the season. Here's what he came up with. So, Ederson in goal, Trent Alexander, Arnold, Soyuncu from Leicester, Van Dijk, Robertson, the midfield three of De Bruyne, Henderson and Fernandes, Sterling, Vardy and Mane. Interesting choice from Gabriel. Do you agree? Have we missed anybody, Barry?
Let's be honest, it's a decent team, Peter. It's you could argue maybe one or two, but the players that he's put in the team of the season, certainly, there's one standout. De Bruyne, for me, is I absolutely love watching that guy. Everything that Man City do well is through him. alone. He is.
Yeah.
I don't like saying there's one guy who makes a team, but he's an unbelievable footballer, that guy. To think that Chelsea let him go, they must be kicking themselves.
They also let Salah go as well.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. But no, a decent team Gabby's picked here. Decent.
Yep. Good one. Of course, the other thing is, well done to Jordan Henderson. He was the English Football Writers Player of the Year. I detected a little bit of ungraciousness on the part of a couple with regards to that, Hugh. I mean, I don't know if Pep was singing the praises more of De Bruyne, and he's a little bit tetchy on Liverpool players being nominated or getting the nod for it.
But as you know, Peter, the football writers, and I can speak this, knowing this, and speak from personal experience, we know nothing about football whatsoever. So it's not. To be serious, I think the Football Writers Award is to be, who had a season that they'll never forget, who was really important this season. Because let's be honest, if you put Jordan Henderson up against Kevin De Bruyne and tic-tac-toe up in Barry's massive garden on a Wednesday afternoon with the cashmere sweaters down his goalposts, everybody's going to go for Kevin De Bruyne. He's the best player in the division. But if you're voting for a player of the year, sometimes other things come into it. And the guy in the last calendar year has captained a team to a European Champions League win, a World Cup win, World Club Cup win, and their first Premiership title in 30 years. So while I agree with Barry totally, I just love De Bruyne. I think De Bruyne is by far the best player in England. I can see where they're coming from with Jordan Henderson.
Yeah, over and above that, the Liverpool fans love him. And when you looked at some of the stats of him in the side and Henderson out of the Liverpool side, they are very much in favour of what he contributes. But listen, I have to tell you, the statements on this show, they always come out just before we're due to come off. I think I love one of our journalists, Cheryl, who's just said, there's a statement coming, hold on, hang fire. So hang on, there is, and there is a statement coming. And there is
Roughie's not happy.
Coming. Well, it's a joint statement by Hearts and Partick Thistle. So there you are. Did you know there was a joint statement coming out?
No, I had a guess. It was a guess. It was going to come up sometime.
It's 5 o'clock, you moron. You should have told us. Do you understand what this programme's all about?
Yeah.
Oh, God almighty. Anyway, here it is. Let me read it out. A joint statement by Hearts and Partick Thistle, as all parties have been requested not to comment on the tribunal's decision or reveal details of the hearings on the grounds of confidentiality. All we can only say is how disappointed and surprised we are at the outcome. We don't regret taking this action as it was the right thing for us to do. There were better ways to deal with ending the season, fairer ways other than putting the burden of a pandemic on to the 3 clubs. And that's a joint statement from them. And of course, Partick Thistle and Hearts are, of course, facing possible fines coming for not following the protocol of arbitration within the rules of association. They went out with it. And we, on this programme, suggested that would indeed happen to them many, many months ago. But they've come out with a joint statement, and I think they're right on it. We're not going to lose or go away from the fact that it was unfair. And it does feel like 3 clubs are being punished in the pandemic. The fair thing to do, which Barry Ferguson and Hugh mentioned, would have been 14 and 3 leagues of 10, but it didn't happen. Now, Juventus, 9th title in a row. It's a small, insignificant league, that Italian league, Hugh. Juventus just keep winning it. I mean, who would want to be in that Italian league? 9 in a row.
Yeah, and it's same in Germany, Bundesliga. What a terrible league! Bayern's just done 8 in a row. So Juventus, a big year for Juventus, in that they got Sarri in, and Sarri was Sarri was going against the template of Juventus because he's more more adventurous, more risky, and would he stand up to the? So it's a big result for Sarri getting him over the line because they stuttered a bit at the end. I'm just amazed that I just look at footballers, Barry, now, you know, and I'm looking at Ronaldo. I watch it. You know me, I watch the football all the time. I'm a really sad person. And I was watching, you know, him on Saturday or Sunday, whatever day it was, playing, and he was just like, you know, I think about losing a yard or using a bit of pace. He was just on it as ever. You know, he just looked as if, see, if you were looking at him and didn't know who he was, you would say, he's a 25 or 26-year-old in the prime of his game. It's amazing now the way footballers are now just like taking their energy into it. Absolutely, aren't they?
They're machines.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've watched the documentary on him, Hugh.
No.
I mean, he's got his own physio, his own doctors, his recovery after games, the way he eats. He's just he's the ultimate sportsman in terms of body shape, the way he looks after himself. And I mean, I'm like you. I watch all the games, and to me, if you didn't know who he was, you would say he's in his mid-20s. The way the condition he's in. Yeah.
And when you see him, Barry, when you see the condition of him, Barry, do you feel a little bit embarrassed that you've let yourself go?
I just, you know what? I feel great. I feel great when you're beside us on this show.
I know.
Yeah, this is what could happen to you, Barry.
Amazing you saying
don't turn out like this.
She was saying he's got his own masseur. I had to get into Partick for that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there he goes, honestly. And by the way, just in case you missed Frankie Howard, he's back with us. Frankie Howard is back. Okay, let's have a look at what we've got to look forward to, because there's lots of things to look forward to. So I'm going to say to each and every one of you, do join us, because over this week we'll be getting the countdown to Aberdeen at Pittodrie against Rangers. That's a 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. So already you'll see all sorts of different times. Dundee United against St Johnstone, Hibs take on Kilmarnock, St Mirren. I'm really looking forward to seeing St Mirren this season. They are taking on Livingston. Celtic against Hamilton, Ross County against Motherwell on the Monday. Celtic Hamilton is on the Sunday as well. The reason I said that about St Mirren is because I think actually, Roughie, Jim Goodwin's made some very interesting signings.
Yeah, I think a lot of the teams have, you know, particularly St Mirren. You know, they obviously lost their goalkeeper, who was very, very good, but they've replaced him with a equally as good keeper, and they have the boy Tate, you know, very quickly snapped him up, you know, to see his worth as well. So no, I think St Mirren will be trying to get into that top six. I don't think they'll want to get through the same year that they had last year, and I'm sure that's the same for the other two teams that are down there for the whole season. You want to try and give yourself a bit of breathing space, and I'm sure that's what St Mirren will be trying to do.
Okay, just before we go, I might as well mention to you at the top of the programme, we did mention that Murdo McLennan released a statement, also Neil Doncaster, the SPFL Chief Executive. Hearts and Partick Thistle have lost their battle at arbitration to remain in their respective leagues. They are now relegated. They've released a statement saying that they still think that it's unfair, and they are surprised by the decision. They also will face on August 6th possible fines for not following the rules of association and taking this to the SFA arbitration in the first place. So there's more financial pain ahead for all these, the two clubs in particular, for the route they decided to go down. I don't think there's any regrets from both clubs on that. They were trying to look for fairness when the reconstruction door was closed. That's the main news. Thank you to so many people who have emailed in and obviously posted messages on our Facebook Live. You can like, share and follow us. We'd be really pleased if you could do that. The figures for the show has been absolutely superb across Facebook and YouTube. We're going bigger and bigger every week, and we'd like to thank you for joining the football family, because if you can have a look around you, there are lots of them copying everything that we do. Some people even copy our logo as well. There's no shame in the game. But to be perfectly honest with you, we've got I know, you only have to look around you. You look at the team we're building here. We've got Hugh McDonald, Barry Ferguson, Alan Rough, Tam McManus, Darren Jackson, Alison McConnell as well. With us, and all of the team, Tam Cowan on the Thursday. Let's not forget Tam. A really good team of people who will give you an opinion. We'll have a bit of banter with you. We've got so many great prizes to give away, and coming up in the next week or two, we've got some very special things that I think you will enjoy getting involved in, and it's all courtesy of the fact that the Football Show, brought to you by our sponsors Arnold Clark, is getting bigger and better day by day. So join us if you can, like, share and follow, and of course don't forget to subscribe. It doesn't cost you a penny. So on that basis, Roughie, you should be absolutely in tip-top form for this season. Can you get ready to predict who's going to win the league, Roughie, who's going to be relegated in each division, and this, we will look for your predictions on Friday, Roughie. Is that feasible? Is that enough time now to tell you about this?
I'd just like to say that I'm not going to hold any grudges, but anybody who voted against us, I hope they get relegated.
yes, that's absolutely fair. That's fair. I mean, I don't mind a bit of venom in there, Roughie. That's absolutely fine. Hugh, you're going to obviously you're usually a Tuesday with us, but you've obviously get ready for your next big double page in the Daily Mail. If you're taking a Tuesday off, you're going somewhere obscure to interview somebody, aren't you?
Well, I'll not say much, but I did mention Cristiano Ronaldo earlier, so just keep your eyes open. But no, he lied. He lied plausibly.
Yes, yeah.
No, I've actually, Peter, my age days.
But I believed you.
I know you.
I believed you.
Was it? Maybe I've got. I've just told Roughie I had an interview in Morelos.
Exactly. Can't even pronounce it.
Right.
And Barry, I think lots of people are really looking forward to Friday because, as ever on the programme, we have consistently, we give our opinion, Barry, don't we? We're honest about it. We give an honest assessment of who we think's going to win the league. Is this the season, Barry? Is it? We're back.
It sure is. It sure is. Pre-season form's been amazing.
Absolutely, it's fantastic. Listen, join us on Friday when Barry tips Rangers to win the treble and the Champions League as well. Don't miss it, folks. It's going to be fantastic. Join us if you can tomorrow, because Alison McConnell will be with us. Roughie will be in the seat, and Darren Jackson as well. Lots of good chat, and stick with us. Like, share and follow us, and subscribe on our YouTube channel if you can. From Barry, Hugh, Roughie and myself, Peter Martin, thank you for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit